Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to imagine for just a second that you're walking down a busy street.
Okay.
It's chaotic, right? But you trust your eyes to tell you where the curb is so you don't trip.
Sure.
You trust your ears to hear a car honking so you don't get hit. That's basic survival. It's biological hardwiring.
Of course.
But, and here's where it gets weird. What if I told you that in almost every social interaction, every business meeting, maybe even every relationship you have, your senses are actually working backward?
That sounds like a riddle. Or, I don't know, the setup for a really frustrating magic trick.
Exactly. But here's the catch. It's not a magic trick where you get to applaud at the end and wonder how they sawed the lady in half.
Right.
It's a trick where you end up making bad decisions, hiring the wrong people, or trusting the wrong friends. We are looking at a fascinating and honestly a kind of unsettling piece of writing today titled The Supremacy of Action Over Oratory.
And this text is a bit of a wake-up call. It's suggesting that we have been trained to use our senses incorrectly.
That's the core premise.
And it is a provocative one. The source material we have today isn't just saying people lie.
Right, that's obvious.
It's totally obvious. That's old news. Everyone knows people lie.
Right.
What makes this deep dive interesting is that it argues we're suffering from a fundamental error in processing reality. The text calls it the ultimate deception.
The ultimate deception. That sounds like the title of a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it? But the stakes are actually really personal.
Yeah.
The source defines this deception in a very specific way. It says the deception isn't the lie someone tells you.
Okay.
The deception is that you have been conditioned to believe a story over your own eyesight. Essentially, we prioritize the narrative, the explanation, the speech, the pitch, over the raw data of what is actually happening right in front of our faces.
So we're addicted to the why and the who, and we completely miss the what.
We completely miss the what.
I love the metaphors the author uses here to talk about seeing with your ears and hearing with your eyes. When I first read that in the notes, I thought, okay, are we talking about synesthesia? Are we getting poetic here?
Is this an art class?
Exactly. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized this is a really practical, almost cynical critique of how we judge people.
It is very practical. It's almost a mechanical breakdown of how human judgment fails.
Yeah.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to take apart these two concepts, seeing with ears and hearing with eyes, and understand why the source argues this is the root of real manipulation.
And hopefully, by the end, figure out how to, as the text puts it, recalibrate.
Exactly.
Because right now, apparently, our calibration is way off. So let's dive right into that first concept. Seeing with your ears. It sounds impossible. I mean, biologically, that's not how it works.
No.
But in context of this text, what is actually happening there?
So seeing with your ears, according to our source, is about labels. It's about hype. It's what happens when you let the description of a thing override your visual observation of the thing. It's when the audio track overwrites the video track in your brain.
Okay, so can we ground this? What does that look like in real life? Give me a scenario.
Think about it like this. Imagine someone walks into a room. You've never met them. But before they even do anything, before they even sit down, you've been told, or maybe they've told you, that they are a visionary.
Visionary.
That is the label. That is the sound hitting your ears.
Right. So now I'm primed. I'm expecting Steve Jobs to walk in.
You are more than primed. You are effectively blinded.
Yeah.
Because you are seeing with your ears, the text argues that the label visionary acts like a filter.
Ah.
So whatever they actually do, maybe they just make a mess, maybe they're disorganized, or they offer a terrible half-baked idea, you reinterpret it through the label you heard.
Oh, I see where you're going. So if I see their messy desk or their rambling speech, I don't think, wow, this person is a mess. I think, oh, that's just part of their chaotic creative process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You justify the visual reality to fit the audio narrative. You aren't looking at the action. You're looking at the definition they gave you.
Yeah.
You've convinced yourself that the mess is actually genius because your ears told you so.
That is fascinating. So the label is literally overwriting the visual data. The source mentions self-imposed labels too, right?
Yes.
Like when someone gives themselves a title?
That's the most dangerous kind. The text explicitly says, when you see with your ears, you're letting the hype or the labels someone gives themselves blind you to what they're actually doing.
It's a form of voluntary blindness.
It is. You stop looking because you think you already know what you're seeing, simply because you heard the title.
It's the classic nice guy paradox. If someone has to tell you, I'm a really nice guy, or I'm a straight shooter, usually
Usually, the behavior suggests the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But because they said it, You're looking for evidence of it.
Yeah.
You're giving the benefit of doubt based on a claim.
It's like buying a product because the box says new and improved, even though the thing inside is broken. You're looking at the box, not the product.
Precisely. You are letting the audio narrative, the hype, dictate your visual reality. And the source argues this is a form of training. We're taught to respect titles.
Right.
We're taught to respect the pitch. So when the pitch is good, we just assume the reality matches it, often without even checking. We want the box to be true.
Which brings us to the flip side of this crosswire situation. The source talks about hearing with your eyes. This one feels a little more intuitive to me, specifically in the corporate world, but walk us through it.
This is where the visual presentation hijacks your critical listening. The source uses the imagery of a fancy outfit or a fake smile.
The classic suit and tie effect, the executive presence.
Right. But let's go deeper than just fashion. The text says, when you hear with your eyes, you're letting a fancy outfit or a fake smile tell you a story that isn't true.
So what's happening there?
What's happening is that the visual cues, the confidence, the attire, the firm handshake, the perfect posture are creating a narrative of competence.
And that narrative is louder than the actual words coming out of their mouth.
That is the danger. You might be in a meeting with someone who is speaking absolute nonsense. Their logic is flawed, their facts are wrong, their strategy's full of holes.
Okay.
But because they look the part, because your eyes are satisfied with the performance, your brain shuts down its critical listening skills. You hear competence because you see a suit.
You know, this reminds me of how often we judge leaders or public figures. If someone looks presidential or looks like a CEO, we tend to give them a massive pass on what they actually say.
We fill in the blanks for
Yeah.
That is exactly what the source is getting at. You are letting the visual presentation narrate the reality. You are hearing the visual. The source argues that this isn't just an accident. It is real manipulation.
It's a misdirection.
A magician's misdirection. If I can get you to focus on my shiny exterior, you might not notice that my interior logic is hollow. Look at this shiny object in my left hand so you don't notice what my right hand is doing.
So we have these two crossed wires. We see with our ears believing the hype, and we hear with our eyes believing the image. The source says this is how we are trained.
Right.
It's a strong word, trained. It implies we're being conditioned like Pavlov's dogs.
I think the author uses trained to emphasize that this is a societal default. From a young age, we are taught to listen to authority, to titles, and respect appearances, dress codes.
Sure, in the classroom.
Exactly. We are taught that the person at the front of the room knows the answer. The source is arguing that this social training, while maybe necessary for keeping order, is actually a vulnerability in the real world.
It opens us up to being deceived.
It does, because we are following the rules of polite society, believing the story, rather than using our raw senses.
It's almost like we are too polite to acknowledge what we are actually seeing. It feels rude to ignore someone's title.
That feels rude, yeah.
It feels rude to point out that the guy in the nice suit doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly. We are prioritizing social cohesion over truth. And manipulators, whether they're toxic bosses, bad partners, or just scammers, they rely on that politeness. They rely on you following your training.
And this leads us to the big divide in the text. The source draws a really sharp line in the sand between two things, language and behavior.
It does.
And, it doesn't mince words here. It puts them in two completely different buckets. It doesn't say they are both part of communication. It basically says one is fake and one is real.
It does. And this is where the philosophy of the text really shines. It stops being just about perception and starts being about the nature of truth itself.
Yeah.
It strips away the nuance in a way that is actually very refreshing.
Let's talk about bucket number one, language. The source has a pretty cynical take on talking, doesn't it?
It's very sharp. The key phrase from the source is, language is the performance.
The performance. That makes it sound like we are all on Broadway.
Yes. It describes language as just the talk, the stage play, and the front people put up. Think about the implications of that.
Oof. That makes every conversation feel a bit fake, doesn't it? Like we are all just actors reading a script.
Well, think about it. When you're speaking, you are curating. You're choosing which words to use. You're framing the narrative. You are, in essence, directing a scene. Even if you aren't lying maliciously, you are presenting a version of reality that you want the other person to see. It's refined, it is rehearsed, it is edited.
So language is the edited version of the truth. It's the Instagram filter of communication. Here is my best angle.
That's a great analogy. It's the filter. And the source warns us that because it is a performance, it is inherently unreliable as a metric of truth. It's the front.
You can't trust the script.
You cannot trust the script because the script was written by the person trying to sell you something, whether that something is a product, an idea, or just a version of themselves.
Which brings us to bucket number 2, behavior. If language is the performance, the fluff, the stage play, what is behavior?
The source is unequivocal here. Behavior is the truth.
Short and sweet.
And powerful. It continues by saying behavior is the real action. It's the only thing that doesn't lie.
The only thing that doesn't lie. That is a bold statement. Is it really the only thing?
In the context of this argument, yes. Because behavior is historical. It's physical. It happened.
Right.
While words can be manipulated, spun, or retracted, you can say, I didn't mean it that way. Action is absolute.
Right.
If someone says they are generous, that's the performance. But if they never give anything to anyone, that's the behavior. The behavior is the only data point that matters. The behavior overrides the words.
It's the raw data.
Exactly. Behavior is the raw data of reality. And the source implies that we have this cognitive dissonance where we desperately want to believe the performance.
Because it's usually prettier.
It's prettier. It's more entertaining.
Right. The stage play is fun. We like the story. We like the promise, the truth. The behavior might be boring or ugly or just disappointing.
And that is why the ultimate deception works. We are complicit in it. We prefer the comfortable stage play of words over the cold, hard reality of actions.
We want to believe the apology, which is the language, rather than acknowledge the pattern of offense, which is the behavior.
That's it. We want to believe the politician's promise rather than look at their voting record.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because it challenges us to stop being an audience member.
Yes.
If language is a stage play, we are sitting in the audience eating popcorn, just enjoying the show.
Yeah.
The source is telling us to stop watching the show and go backstage.
That's it. Stop applauding the monologue and look at what the actor is doing when the spotlight is off. The source says behavior is the only thing that doesn't lie. It's absolute.
Yeah.
You can argue with a statement. You cannot argue with an action. It simply is.
So we have established that our wires are crossed. We are seeing with ears, hearing with eyes. We are valuing the performance of language over the truth of behavior. So the obvious question is, what do we do about it? How do we stop being the audience?
Right.
The source calls for a recalibration.
Yes. And I like that word, recalibration. It implies that your equipment, your senses aren't broken. You don't need a brain transplant.
Right.
They're just tuned to the wrong frequency. You need to adjust the settings.
So how do we adjust the settings? The text gives us some pretty specific commands. It's almost like a protocol.
It starts with this instruction. Let your ears and eyes do what they're supposed to do in conjunction with your mind.
It sounds simple,
But it requires active effort. It's not passive.
and it breaks it down into what I see as 3 main steps. The first one is about the noise.
Right. Mute the labels. That is step 1.
Mute the labels. I love the idea of having a remote control for reality, but practically, how do you do this? You meet someone, and they hand you a card that says, Senior Vice President of Global Innovation. How do you mute that?
It is a mental remote control. When you meet someone, or when you're assessing a situation, you have to consciously press mute on the titles, the reputation, the self-promotion.
So you say to yourself,
You have to say to yourself, I don't care what this person says they are. I'm going to pretend I know nothing about their status.
that is hard to do. It requires a lot of discipline to ignore the director title. We are wired to respect the hierarchy.
It does. But if you don't mute the label, you start seeing with your ears again. You start filling in the blanks with assumptions of competence.
Right.
Muting the label forces you to look at the person naked, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
You are forced to assess them based only on what is happening in the moment. Does their idea make sense? Are they actually listening? Or are they just hiding behind the title?
Okay, so step 1, mute the labels, strip the rank. Step 2 seems to be a continuation of that. The source says, ignore the talk.
Ignore the talk. Recognize it as noise. This goes back to the idea that language is a performance.
The stage play.
If you accept that language is a stage play, then you have to treat it like background noise. It's not that you literally don't listen to the words, you're not sticking your fingers in your ears, but you strip them of their authority. You don't let the words define the reality.
So treat it like a commercial.
Exactly. Even if it's a really touching, well-produced commercial, it's still a commercial. So if someone is giving you a long, eloquent excuse for why they didn't get the job done,
You hear the noise, but you don't let it distract you from the fact that the job is not done.
Right. The talk is just the packaging. You need to look past the packaging to see the empty box.
Which leads us to step 3, the most important one. This is the payoff. Watch what people actually do.
Watch what people actually do, not just what they say. This is the shift in focus. It is about becoming an observer of motion, of execution, of result.
It reminds me of watching a sports game. You can have a commentator telling you a team is playing great, they have so much heart, they are trying so hard.
Yeah,
But if the score is 0-5, the action on the field is telling the real story.
that is a perfect example. The commentator is the oratory.
Yeah.
The scoreboard and the gameplay are the action. The source is telling you to watch the game, not listen to the commentary. If you turn down the volume on the TV, mute the noise, you might see the game very differently.
You'd see the flaws.
You might see the flaws the commentator is trying to talk over. You might see that the star player is actually just standing around.
That is a really practical tool for you, for anyone listening. Next time you are in a high-stakes situation, maybe a negotiation, maybe a first date, maybe try to mentally turn the volume down.
Exactly. Try the silent movie technique. Ask yourself, if this person couldn't speak, if I couldn't hear their charming voice, what would I think of them based solely on what they have done in the last hour?
If I remove the soundtrack of their charisma, what does the movie actually look like?
What does it look like? It's funny because when you put it that way, it seems so obvious. Why don't we do this naturally?
Right.
Because we are addicted to the soundtrack. We're addicted to the narrative. It's uncomfortable to sit in the silence of just watching behavior, because behavior can be stark. It can be cold.
But the source promises that if you do this...
If you recalibrate, you stop being deceived. You spot the truth.
You essentially become immune to the ultimate deception. You can't be manipulated by a story if you aren't listening to it.
Precisely. You are dealing with the raw data. And in a world that is increasingly full of performance, social media curation, corporate PR spin, personal branding, this ability to cut through the noise is, frankly, a survival skill.
It protects you from buying the hype.
It does.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
We've gone from the idea of crossed wires, seeing with ears and hearing with eyes, to the realization that language is just a pretty performance.
And we've landed on the solution. Behavior is the only truth. It is the only thing that doesn't lie.
This is one of those deep dives that changes how you walk into a room.
Yeah.
It makes you a little more dangerous in a good way.
It really does. It's a tool for everyday life. Whether you're hiring an employee, voting for a candidate, or even just trying to understand a friend, this distinction is crucial.
It's a superpower.
The ability to separate the stage play from the real action is a superpower. It protects you from the hype. It protects you from the fake smile. It empowers you to see what is actually there, not what someone wants you to see.
And if I can leave you with one thought to mull over, something to take with you after you take your headphones off, we talked about how language is a performance and behavior is the truth. But ask yourself this, how many truths have you missed in your life simply because the stage play was too entertaining to look away from? How many times did you accept a comfortable lie because the performance was just so good?
Wow. That is a question that might keep me up tonight. Are we clapping for the performance while the reality burns down behind the curtain?
Keep your eyes open.
And keep the volume down. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.